Okay, so now it's time to start taking a look at the syntax of CSS and better understand what's going on here. And then, of course, we're going to add some things to it and then understand some code we apply in HTML in our web page in the back end over here to make things really pop. The first thing we notice is that we have body in here, and then we have these curly braces which open up what we call declarations. Now, we could have multiple lines in here. We could actually put the word color in here like this, put in something like red. And so we could have multiple lines of declarations going down through here. If I leave that like it is right there and I just click save, and we come back here and take a look at the home page and hit refresh, we see that everything is red, of course, except for links. Anchor tags have their own behaviors. By default, it's blue for a regular link, and then purple for a visited link, and so forth. Or an active link, which is what I'm clicking on at the moment, might change to a different color like red or something like that. But here, all the text is red. Well, we might not really want that. We might just want to make the heading of our web page red or some other color. And so I'm going to go ahead and delete that real quick and do a quick save and bring this back up and refresh it. What if I wanted the heading to be red though? And I might want a red or a green or something like that on there. What I can do is I can go into here and I can actually modify my H1 tag just like I did the body tag. Create a curly brace and open and close it like that, and then put color red here like this. And so now what I have is just my header. I've identified that particular tag as what I want to be red. Well, is that the only head one or one header that I have on my site? Maybe not. And do I really want all of them to be red? So, we come into situations where it's like, well, I don't really want all of my headers red, but I've got headers all throughout my website. How could I make it to where just this one header? In other words, not page 2's header. I don't want that to be red. I want it to be green, right? So how would I know the difference between these two pages to make it happen? Well, that's where we get into things called classes. We can set up a class attribute in our tags, and then we can define a class in CSS to point at it. Okay, so let's take this out here, for example. Let's take that H1 out of there. Let's save the file. And let's go back into our code here. Let's refresh the document. Make sure everybody's all back to black the way it's supposed to be. Go back to the home page, second page, and all that. Okay, so we're back on the home page now. I want the home page's title to be red, and I want the second page title to be green. What I can do is I can actually go into my web pages, such as my home page, and I can set a class attribute. Class equals. And again, these are things we want to know before we start building the site. We would architect this thing out. We would know the different levels of headings that we're going to deal with, and we would have all these things mapped in our head. So when we actually initially create our first template of our site, we would be applying these attributes in here like this, setting up our architecture for smooth development down the line. So if I set up a class, let's call this a page or home header. So we call this the home header class. And notice that I've got uppercase H in there. I've set the class on that one to be home header. Click save. Let's open up the other document, the second page, and let's make its H1's class equals second header. So we'll just call this one second header. Now, I'm making these up. This could be Billy Bob's header for all we care. The name is important, though, and its case sensitivity is important here. So I've got home header and second header established. Let's go ahead and save that file. Now, if I bring this back up into here, nothing changed in our document at all. I mean, we've still got the text, everything's still the same, but I've now got class established on this. So now what I can do is I can go to my style sheet and put a period and then home header. In other words, I'm going to actually create the definition for that class of home header. And in the HTML document, I'm using the class attribute to call this. See, the dot defines it in CSS as a class. So home header is really what we call it, not dot home header down in the code over here in the web page, but here in the style sheet, we do name it this way. And here I can say color, colon, and we wanted red for the home page, right? So now if I go like this and click save, watch this. Let's go back to the home page and refresh it. It's red. What about the second page? It's still black. But we have a second header class established on this. So how would we set that up? You can go ahead and pause and try it yourself before I show it to you. And now I'm going to go ahead and give you a shot at showing you what it looks like. It's going to look just like the first one did, except we're defining it for second header. And if you accomplish this in a pause and try yourself, you were right. We just literally need to create a class called second header, spelled exactly the same way we listed it in our code, and give it a color of, and I think I said we were going to go with green on this one, but you're going to give it any color you wanted to. If you gave it red, then they're both going to be red, which kind of defeated the purpose. And there it is. It's green now. Now it is green. We go back to the home page. It is red here. So with those classes established, if there's something else I wanted to do to the header, maybe even change its font. Watch this. This is a separate class just for that one instance of the H1 tag. And this class can be applied to anything. I could apply this to the actual link tag. If I wanted to, it's already set up in my style sheet. In other words, the class home header, it just basically changes any font to red. The class second header just changes fonts to green. So if I apply that in my HTML, go back to the home page here. If I apply that to my HTML, for example, on an anchor tag like this and say class equals home header like this and click save, watch what happens to my links. I'm going to go back to the home page. We're there. Go ahead and refresh. The link's red now. So I can apply that class to any tag I want to. It's just a class. As long as that tag has a class attribute set up as that, we're good. So this opens up a lot of doors, a lot of managing, a lot of pre-thought before you develop your web pages on setting up classes and setting up IDs. We'll talk about IDs in just a little bit. Those are developed or defined with a hash symbol in front of them. It would look something like this, would be an ID declaration in CSS. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and remove, let me go ahead and save this file off of here. Let's go back in and remove that class off of the anchor tag just to get that back in order here. We'll be applying stuff to that here briefly. Okay, so that basically sets us up for understanding now we have some style sheet code that we've taken a look at. And we can see how it starts to build. And generally we might want to have like some spacing in between each of these declarations like this so that we can see them. Okay, I can go in and make additional adjustments inside of these, add things to it. For example, my home header, I want its font family to be, let's call it, let's go Times New Roman. Like this. And so now if we save this and come back into here and hit a little refresh on the home page, you can see that the font for that one is Times New Roman. The font for this is my text is now still green and Arial. The text is still the same, and now our link's still showing up red here. Did I not save the home page? I might not have saved the home page after I did that. Let me go back to my home page and make the save, because we did remove that, but I don't think I saved it. And notice that without saving the home page, things on the page were changing. That's because I did save the style sheet that controls that rule. See it? So all the code was still there from before. The only code that I'd taken out was the one that controlled that link. But the CSS and the web page come together and do things. So once we establish our web page with all these proper things in place, we can now control the entire site from that CSS file. We can change colors. We can change layouts. We'll be defining pixel widths and all kinds of stuff in that style sheet that helps us manage our web pages. So in the next piece, the last piece we're going to get into looking at style sheets is talking about the ID attribute inside HTML elements. And then we're going to look at the ID establishment, how we establish it in CSS, and how it's important when we start working with our actual tags. And then that takes us getting ready for JavaScript at that point. So one last piece here to take a look at with style sheet language. But at this point, we do have a general understanding of how these things come together. Of course, we're just dealing with small pieces of code. This gets really large. When we start talking about large layouts on web pages, this gets pretty big. A lot of code on the page. As you saw in the very first video, way back in the introduction to HTML, that's a lot of HTML and style sheet language and JavaScript being used on that page. We're going to kind of implement the same thing here.